We are going to start with HB 2258 because it's, I see Chair Ormsby here. Staff, could you brief the bill for us?
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, Elizabeth Allison, staff for the committee. The bill before you is House Bill 2258, providing funding for municipalities participating in the Regional 911 Emergency Communication System. For some brief background, an excise tax is imposed on the sale of specific goods or services or on certain uses. And examples include real estate excise tax and vehicle excise taxes. The state imposes an excise tax on all landlines, wireless phone numbers, and voice over internet protocol lines, which is making a phone call using an internet connection, in an amount up to 25 cents per line. Counties are authorized to impose a 911 excise tax on the use of those lines up to 70 cents per month for each line. And the proceeds collected from either the state or county excise tax must be used only for the 911 emergency communication system and its administrative and operational costs. Turning to the bill, House Bill 2258 requires counties that operate a regional 911 emergency communication system and that transfer emergency calls to a municipal 911 emergency communication system for disposition and dispatch to transfer a portion of the revenue it receives from the 911 excise tax to the local government operating the municipal 911 emergency communication system. The amount is calculated based on a formula that is established in the bill. The amount must be transferred quarterly by the county operating the regional 911 emergency communication system to the local government that operates the municipal system. That concludes my remarks. I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions for staff? Okay, well, Chair Ormsby, welcome to the Local Government Committee. We don't see you very often here, so we feel very privileged.
You're in local government. Representing the 3rd Legislative District in Spokane. Thank you for hearing the bill and for your consideration. So everybody has a phone, makes a phone call, pays an excise tax. And that money, I think it's like 95 cents a month, goes for emergency communications. The dynamic in my community is that it goes to the county. And for all fire dispatches, it works fine because the county does dispatch fire. But for police-related calls, the Emergency Communications Center fields the initial call, which is 15 to 20 seconds, then transfers police calls to the city call intake and dispatch mechanism, but they receive none of the proceeds. So for all of our constituents in the city of Spokane that are paying that excise tax, they're not getting services for emergency communication on the police side of the intake and dispatch formula. I'm sure Representative Griffey will have better, more technical information about how that works. But as a layperson, this is about making sure that folks in our community that pay that excise tax get services for the larger portion of the 911 calls that are police, not fire related. And that is the gist of the bill, just trying to provide equity in the distribution so the money goes to provide services to the people that pay it. And I'm happy to answer any questions that I am able to.
Thank you so much. Questions? Representative Griffey.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for that. Yeah, I've done some of this. So my question, we've heard about the Spokane, well, in layman terms, the dispatch wars. Has there been an attempt to functionally consolidate all dispatch services that they would be under one umbrella? And has that fallen apart? Is that kind of where we're at?
That I don't know that fallen apart is right, but there has been no interlocal agreement that's been reached that have been reached in other communities where the distribution is formalized. And while I think that the county apparatus doesn't have a problem with the city doing their own stuff, they get no resources for it. And so I wouldn't characterize, I don't know the ins and outs of the dispatch wars. I would just say that for folks that pay, and these are independent decisions by independently governed entities, whether it's the county or the city, and what those determinations are, I would leave for them to talk about the inside baseball stuff. I'm just aware that the resources aren't available for law dispatch.
I thank you, and thank you, Madam Chair.
Representative Gaynor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Representative Ormsby, for bringing this to a discussion. So if I'm understanding you, then in Spokane, the county is the designated PSAP?
And this is my lay understanding, is that the statute says distributed to the state and county in a formulaic way, and and then depending on the circumstances in each individual county, whether through interlocal agreement or other arrangements, but the county currently is the only recipient as far as local governments go.
So when the county received that designation, were the police and fire, did they have their own dispatch at that time?
They did, and I believe fire has been incorporated into the county emergency communication system. Police have not.
Okay, thank you.
And those were decisions by the city.
One more question, Representative Jacobson.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Rep. Ormsby. Just to be clear, this doesn't collect any more taxes.
No.
It just distributes down to the people who are doing the work.
The distribution formula, Representative Jacobson, yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions? We don't have time for roasting, so thank you for being here.
Thank you. Mercy. Appreciate it.
Okay, with that, we're going to suspend the hearing on 2258 and open the hearing for 2103. Please brief 2103 for us.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, Kellen Wright, staff to the committee. The bill before you is House Bill 2103, an act relating to mitigating harm and improving equity in large port districts. First, some background, and I'll warn you ahead of time, this is a rather long one, so buckle up. Port districts are special purpose districts empowered to acquire, construct, maintain, operate, develop, and regulate marine terminals, railways, airports, and industrial facilities, among other things. There are 75 port districts within the state. Port districts can be funded in part through property taxes. There are different property taxes that ports can impose, but the most relevant one here is their regular port property tax levy. A port district can impose a regular annual levy of up to 45 cents per $1,000 of assessed value of the taxable property within the district, and this can be used for general port purposes. As I mentioned before, port districts can operate airports, among their other abilities. As we all know, airports can generate a significant amount of noise. When determining whether an area around an airport is significantly impacted by airport noise, the Federal Aviation Administration uses something called the day-night average sound level in the area. This is a measure of the average decibel level of noise a person experiences over a 24-hour period due to the operation of aircraft. An area experiencing 65 decibels or more is considered by the FAA to be significantly impacted. Port districts in Washington that operate an airport serving more than 900 scheduled jet flights per day are authorized to undertake noise abatement programs to alleviate the impact of jet noise on the surrounding area. Currently, only Seattle-Tacoma International Airport, or Sea-Tac, which is operated by the Port of Seattle, serves this many jet flights. Sea-Tac averages over 1,000 jet flights per day. Spokane International Airport, by contrast, averages fewer than 250 jet flights per day. An aircraft noise abatement program can be only undertaken within an impacted area. This area extends 2 miles from the center line of any runway to a point 10 miles north of the paved north end of any runway and to a point 13 miles south of the paved south end of any runway. This is within that area is known as the impacted area, and if any portion of a property is within the impacted area, then the entire property is considered to be within the area. A port district that operates a noise abatement program may, among other things, provide soundproofing for structures within the area. In order to receive soundproofing assistance, the owner of a property must waive damages and convey an easement for aircraft operation and noise to the port district. Property can generally only receive each type of benefit provided by the port once, but there is an exception for properties that are now subject to different noise impacts than they were when the soundproofing was installed, or that contain soundproofing that is in need of repair or replacement. Port districts must conduct inspections of homes where the mitigation equipment is no longer working as intended, and must work with the building inspector to determine if the failure of the equipment or improvements has resulted in any damage to the property. In 2024, the Port of Seattle anticipates approximately $1 billion in operating revenue. Of this revenue, about 6.3%, or about $86,600,000, will come from the regular property tax levy that the port levies. This represents an increase of about 4.8%, or about $4 million from the prior year's levy. And these levy amounts will become more relevant in a moment when I turn to the bill, but we are still currently on background. In 2021, the legislature implemented a cap-and-trade program to reduce carbon emissions. Under this program, carbon allocations are auctioned off by the Department of Ecology, with most of the revenue going to the climate commitment account. All right, now turning to this bill, for a quick overview, I'll go into more detail in a second. This will require port districts that operate a noise abatement program, that is the Port of Seattle, to implement a new remedial mitigation program. It would also require the port to conduct assessments and outreach when it is taking action related to certain capital projects. Finally, it would provide the opportunity for grants and loans to be made to the port related to these new programs. Turning first to the new remedial mitigation program, this program that the port operates could consist of repairing or replacing soundproofing equipment that was previously provided but now is not functioning below standard. It is functioning below standard, or has caused mold within the property. Could consist of providing sound mitigation equipment to residences, senior centers, youth centers, daycares, or schools. Providing air quality mitigation equipment to those facilities. Being involved in a program to provide urban forests or green space within an impacted area. Providing or supporting community indoor recreational facilities. Or providing indoor community greenhouses in an impacted area. In order for a property to receive an individual benefit for that property under this remedial mitigation program, the property must meet one of three criteria. First, it must have been provided mitigation equipment that is determined by an inspection to have failed, or it must be within 10 miles of an airport and subject to aircraft noise of a day-night average sound level of at least 55 decibels, or it must be within 5 miles of the end of a runway used for jet landings at the airport, and within a 2-mile radius of the landing path that is used by jets. Benefits under the program must be provided first to properties that have previously received mitigation equipment that has now failed or not working properly. Second, for the sound mitigation equipment, that would have to be provided to properties that qualify under the aircraft noise criteria, while aircraft mitigation equipment would have to be provided to properties that qualify because of proximity to a runway and landing path. And then third and last, benefits could be provided to other qualifying properties. The Port District would be prohibited from requiring that the property owners provide an unconditional easement as a condition of receiving a benefit under this remedial mitigation program. Properties would also be allowed to receive benefits to realize community benefits. Port districts would have to provide inspections to determine whether mitigation equipment previously provided has failed. That would be provided at the request of a qualifying property owner, and it would have to be provided at no cost to the owner. The port would need to enter into an interlocal agreement with the county to provide the building inspectors for the program. If the port does not do this, then it would be subject to additional reporting requirements and may have to conduct more frequent inspections. If county building inspectors are used, the inspections only need to occur once every 5 years, unless an inspector recommends a shorter interval. But if the Port District directly contracts with the building inspectors without going through the county, the inspections would have to could be requested annually. Beginning February 1st, 2026, and every year thereafter, the Port District would be required to produce a public report on its remedial mitigation program. So that's the new remedial mitigation program that the port would be required to undertake. The port would also be required to conduct an assessment and community outreach under certain circumstances. This would occur when the port is taking an action involving a capital improvement project, purchase, or construction of more of $12 million or more in value. If this happens, the port would need to do three things. First, conduct an assessment of the likely adverse cumulative impacts of the action on overburdened communities and vulnerable populations that will be affected by the action. Second, provide a written explanation of the actions the Port District is taking to minimize the impacts, or if the Port District's not taking action, explaining why it's unable to do so. Third, the port would have to consult with the overburdened communities and vulnerable populations about the proposed actions, and this would include by conducting community outreach and holding at least one meeting at a location that's accessible to the community. Finally, the bill would require the port to use certain funds for remedial mitigation programs and establish grant programs related to the remedial mitigation program and the assessment and consultation requirements. The bill would require that after July 1st of this year, if the Port District's year-over-year tax levy amount increased, at least half of the dollar amount of that increase would need to go to the remedial mitigation programs. Just using 2024 as an example, the tax levy for the Port of Seattle is expected to increase by $4 million over the prior year. If this bill had been in effect, then half of that money, or $2 million, would have to go towards remedial mitigation programs. In addition, the bill would require that after July 1st of 2025, 1% of the regular property tax levy raised by the port would have to be used for remedial mitigation programs. An additional 1% of the tax levy would have to be used each year until 10% of the total is being used for the mitigation programs. Again, using the port's 2024 budget as an example, 1% of the property tax levy would be about $860,000, while 10% would be $8.6 million. The bill would also authorize the Department of Commerce to provide grants or loans to the port for the purpose of entering into those interlocal agreements with counties for the building inspectors or for contracting with building inspectors directly. The Department of Commerce would need to publish an annual report on its website about this program. Finally, the bill would allow for money from the climate commitment account to be appropriated into a new fund administered by the Department of Commerce. This fund could be used to make grants and loans to port districts to undertake remedial mitigation programs or to comply with the requirements for conducting assessments and consultations. To qualify for a grant or loan, the port would have to demonstrate that the actions it proposes to take will measurably improve the effectiveness of remedial mitigation measures or communication and consultation related to significant port actions. The Department of Commerce would also have to provide an annual online report on the activity of this fund, including the benefits that have been realized because of the grants or loans that have been made. And that concludes my remarks. I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions for staff? Okay, well, welcome, Reverend Orwell. Please come and tell us about your bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, I'm Tina Orwell, State Rep from the 33rd Legislative District. That is the longest bill intro I have ever had. I want to thank Kellen. He has just done extraordinary work on this bill, so thank you. So what gives my community hope? This bill. They feel seen and heard and can really share with you the impact that Sea-Tac Airport has had on them. And, you know, it's not just the 1,000 flights a day and waking up in the middle of the night, though those do impact us, but it's also the pollution, including these ultrafine particles that can penetrate deep into our lungs. And so, you know, and I just have to say, I have a very beautiful district, you know, and I know some of my fellow legislators share it with me, but the most beautiful part is the people. We're beautifully diverse, we're culturally rich, but we also struggle with health disparities. And what they have found through the Department of Health and the review, that the closer you live to the airport, the shorter your lifespan. We have higher rates of asthma, we have higher rates of heart disease. So it really has had an impact living by an airport. So one of the things that changed for us was in 2017, we had UW look at the footprint of our airport. They had done this for LAX, they had done this for Atlanta, and it really did show that there were a high concentration of these ultrafine particles and that they can distinguish them from other types of pollution. So that really kind of opened our eyes to this issue. So the bill before you really is about expanding the mitigation. And one piece is the HEPA filters. UW did put some of the HEPA filters in our schools. And the two things they found is, one, a lot of the outdoor pollution comes inside, about 50%. But these freestanding HEPA filters, unlike HVAC systems, can reduce that by 70%. So, I mean, the good news is there's things we can do. And so we'd really like to see the expansion of HEPA filters, schools, daycares, senior centers, indoor spaces for recreation. We also, the second thing we'd like to see is more protection of green spaces, and that includes parks, trees, especially older growth. Again, that helps our air quality. But I want to talk for a minute about helping the residents. You know, there's a lot of folks in our community that have failed port packages. You're going to hear from them today. I had a chance to go to Mr. Lee's house a couple weeks ago. They cannot see through the windows. They're infested with mold. I've heard many stories from my constituents. And, some of these packages failed early on. Some of them just wear over time. It's been a number of years. So how do we fund these things? Well, one is the climate change. We hope some of those dollars can maybe help, especially on the air purification side. But we also are looking at the port side. And I will tell you one thing is that San Francisco has been doing, in 2018, they started a repair program, and they're using their dollars, and they're doing it. And the reason we have to find another source is the federal dollars are not allowed to be used to fix these failed port packages or expand to other areas. And so, and we've been working with the port for years. We meet with them regularly. We had a bill several years ago to be able to fix port packages, but we haven't got the list of how many people are impacted. But we know I think there were 11,000 packages installed. We don't know what percent have failed. But it's important because we can't use the federal dollars to look at things like the property tax that we pay. And we'd like the port to have some skin in the game. We'd like them to be one of our partners. You're going to hear from our city partners, right? We all work together. We want to work with the port and really, find some justice and help the health conditions of the people that live in our community. So again, we will continue to all meet together. We want this to be a team, but we really think these investments are key to really moving it forward. So thank you for your consideration.
Any questions for the prime sponsor? Representative Jacobson.
Thanks, Rep. Orwell. Thanks, Madam Chair. So does the port already have a South King County Community Impact Fund that collects $12 million a year-ish?
I think they do have a fund, and I will say several things. I don't know what percent goes towards mitigation. They're still doing mitigation to a small area around the airport. As far as I know, these dollars have not been used to fix any failed packages. Sometimes they're used for community gardens, but we've also found that soil's toxic, and we're asking for greenhouses and ways to actually help our community. Again, there are good things they're doing, and we just want to see that really enhanced to help a lot of these homeowners that are really struggling, and you'll hear directly from them. But thank you. There is some dollars, and what percent are going towards mitigation, I'm not sure.
So obviously, given the area that we're talking about, the Climate Commitment Act provides funding through grants for, I think it's the goal is 40% of the money goes towards impacted communities. So has there been, what is outside of the scope of that, the noise abatement? Anything else that's outside the scope where you couldn't apply for grants?
I think a lot of the stuff around the air quality and the HEPA filters would fit nicely if it could get the funding, but I do think it's very murky with the abatement piece and fixing the trouble packages. I would also say, our friends at the port have $1 billion budget. I mean, this is kind of budget crumbs, but it says a message to our community that they care about us, and it would make a huge difference. And we need ongoing funding, right? Because it's going to take time. San Francisco started this in 2018, and so we do need sustainable funds. We do think the climate change can help us, and we'd like to partner on all of it, but we do think we need a sustainable, stable funding to do this work, and we want the port to be our partner in this.
Okay, thank you very much. With that, we're going to suspend the hearing on 2103 so that we can hear from Representative Stearns on 2211. Staff, would you please brief 2211?
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, Kellen Wright, staff to the committee. The bill before you is House Bill 2211, an act related to granting local taxing authority to fund criminal justice. First, a bit of background. There are two local government sales and use taxes that are relevant here. The first can be imposed by either a county or city, but only with voter approval. A county can impose this tax at a rate of up to 0.3%, while a city can impose the tax at a rate of up to 0.1%. The total rate of the tax, however, is capped at 0.3%. That means that if both a city and a county were to try and impose the tax at the maximum rate, either the county or the city would have to have its rate of tax reduced so that no more than 0.3% was collected total. Which tax is reduced depends on whether it was the county or the city who imposed the tax first. Whoever imposed the tax second would have to reduce it so that the maximum rate does not exceed that 0.3% or 0.3%. Whether a city has imposed the tax or not, a county that imposes the tax must distribute 40% of the revenue to cities within the county on a per capita basis. Cities that impose the tax, meanwhile, must distribute 15% of the revenue they collect under the tax to the county. Overall, 1/3 of the revenue from this tax must be used for criminal justice purposes, while the use of the remainder is unrestricted. Turning now to the second sales and use tax, only counties can impose this tax. This tax may be imposed legislatively by an ordinance, but may be subject to repeal by referendum. It can be imposed at a rate of up to 1/10%. A county that imposes this tax receives 10% of the revenue from the tax directly, while the remainder of the revenue is divided between the county and cities within the county on a per capita basis. All of the revenue from this second tax must be used for criminal justice purposes. Turning now to this bill, it would allow the county to impose the first tax legislatively until January 1st, 2027. If a county has not imposed the tax at the full 0.3% rate by July 1st of this year, then a city within that county has until January 1st, 2027 to impose the tax legislatively. If the tax is imposed legislatively, then all of the revenue from the tax must be used for criminal justice purposes, and the total amount of funding put towards criminal justice purposes must be higher after the imposition of the tax than it was prior to the tax being imposed. With the second tax, the bill would add co-responder and diversion treatment services as criminal justice purposes for which the tax could be used. That concludes my remarks, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for staff? Okay, Representative Stearns, thank you for joining us. Please tell us about your bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair, ranking member, and committee members. For the record, my name is Chris Stearns, representative from the 47th District, and I'm grateful to you for hearing this bill. I introduced the bill because I've heard just such an outcry about the need for more public safety from my constituents and from the cities in my district. So the gist of what the bill would do is to empower local governments to have a little bit more flexibility so they could make more flexible decisions about public safety, but also basically fund more public safety. So of course that would include law enforcement officers as well as first responders, and something that I've seen really work well in Auburn, which is community court. As you know, Washington is pretty far below, in terms of cities, the national average for law enforcement officers per population, and the cities in King County, like Kent and like Auburn, are very far below. They've basically run out of ways to fund more police officers, more diversion, more community courts. So I'm trying to find a way to help them meet those needs, and that's essentially the gist of what the bill would do. I'll just add that, reemphasize that it's a relatively modest proposal, 3 cents on every $10, but the impact, 30, 40, even 50 more police officers would make a huge difference in terms of response times and just making people in our communities feel a lot safer. So I'm glad for the chance to present this bill, and thank you again for hearing it.
Thank you. Any questions for the sponsor? I have a couple, actually, if you don't mind. So communities in your district, have they gone out for public safety levies and gone to the people and asked for the ability to raise funds that way?
That's a great question, and I'm not totally sure what the answer is. I think the cities are going to be speaking, so maybe they could answer that question.
Great. And then I assume that public defense is part of your definition of criminal justice.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, super. Thanks so much. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so I don't see the sponsor for 2231 here. So we will suspend the hearing on 2211 and go back to 2258 to hear testimony. And we have about 60 people signed up to speak, so we're going to have to reduce the time to speak to a minute. And Vice Chair Alvarado. do you mind calling up the first testifiers?
Thank you. First, we have James Teakin, Michael Rainey, and David Duncan. James Teakin, I think you're in the Zoom room.
I am here if you can hear me.
We can hear you. Please go ahead.
I am sorry about that. My computer dropped out. I'll try to make this a fast minute. I am James Teakin. I'm here representing Local 270, the Spokane City employees, and the Washington State Council of County and City Employees, Council 2. We represent the 20 plus employees that do the dispatching over here at the city of Spokane. The real issue here is the services are provided by the city of Spokane to the citizens of Spokane, and their tax dollars that they are paying on their cell phone are not going to those citizens who are paying the tax dollars. They're being held by the county. The county is not forthcoming with either equipment or other needs to our city communications. Our city communications have been standalone as the city has wanted it to be because our command staff have full control over those communications. So I know I've got a minute, but thank you for your time. I will stay on in case there's any further questions or clarification.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Okay, thank you for your testimony.
Michael Rainey, please go ahead.
I don't have a Michael Rainey listed.
David Duncan.
Vice Chair Alvarado, are you reading from 2258?
We're having issues. Yes, I will call John Knowles, then Cody Rohrbach, followed by Mike Hoover and Ken Johnson.
Good morning. On behalf of Sheriff John Knowles, my name is David Ells, and I serve as the Spokane Valley Police Chief, as well as Undersheriff of the Spokane County Sheriff's Office. I also serve on the Board of Directors for Spokane Regional Emergency Communications, also known as SHREC. I appreciate the opportunity to testify today regarding the proposed bill, House 2258. Spokane Regional Emergency Communications serves 22 law enforcement and fire districts in Spokane County. I'm concerned about the impacts that this bill would have on SHREC and those agencies. The national trend for emergency communication centers is to move towards consolidated communication centers, which increase the ability for interoperability between different agencies during emergency situations, allowing for safer communities. Emergency communications consolidation also reduces duplication, like multiple expensive phone systems, and provides a greater scale economy. The regional approach is supported by our community, as evidenced by their support for the 110% sales tax that voters approved in Spokane County. This proposed bill would fragmentize emergency communications in Spokane County. If this is necessary for efficient communications in the state of Washington, why is it being narrowly proposed for just certain jurisdictions? This has the potential of being similar to House Bill 155, which is still yet to be implemented due to concerns about it in Spokane County, which is the only affected jurisdiction. I would suggest a no vote on this bill and put interoperability and streamlined communication systems first.
Thank you. Next up, question. Representative Riccelli.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks for your testimony. So my question is, do you, with the hat from the Valley, I mean, are we understanding response times? What's the value added? What is the process that happens when a 911 call, say, comes in from the city of Spokane? How would you see that working through, and how do you evaluate the process currently?
I guess I'm not understanding your question. Can you clarify that?
So I guess my question is, someone in downtown Spokane calls, they need law enforcement assistance, they call 911. So that goes to SHREC first, right? and then is relayed to the city police. What kind of information is collected during that first, before they're passed along? And I guess I'm just trying to understand the process from that standpoint and the value added there.
I think there's efficiencies when all the law enforcement agencies are aware as to what's going on, especially on calls that occur close to jurisdictional boundaries, where it could be unclear as to who is the primary agency, which might necessitate a multi-jurisdictional response or mutual aid response. And I think when you also look at some of the economy of savings, for scale savings, when we look at it, that's a big feature for us. And I think it's also one thing to also clarify from some previous comment that all the local law enforcement agencies in Spokane County are part of SHREC, with the exception of the Spokane Police Department. And even with the city of Spokane, the fire department is a member of SHREC.
Follow up, Madam Chair, Vice Chair. So I guess so what data is collected on that first call? Is there any duplication that occurs that has to be passed on and information gathered on that when that second after that call is transferred? Is there a duplication that occurs? I mean, are we finding that? I guess are we finding that in this process that once it's transferred that folks have to then kind of go back to square one on collecting of this information? Are they fully informed of what's going on?
My understanding is that the initial framework of the call, as far as what is occurring, is entered into the CAD system, and then that's transferred from there, so that the basic primer of what is occurring is happening. That's something I would have to defer to our SHREC operations staff, though.
Okay, yeah, I'd love to understand if that information's entered and then that has to be then gathered again. It just seems like there might be some efficiencies that could be worked on. Anyway, thank you for testifying, and you're a good soccer coach too, so I appreciate what you do in the community.
That's really my friend.
Representative Griffey.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Sheriff. The way that a PSAP works is it's a primary 911 receiving center, correct? Well, I guess I don't know that I can ask the question any longer. Anyway, it's
you
the primary
concur?
receiving. It does duplicate services. Both dispatchers have to ask the same questions if you don't combine services. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. Vice Chair Alvarado is going to take over testimony now.
Thank you. We called Cody Rohrbach and Mike Hoover and Ken Johnson. I think some of those folks are not here, but if you are here, please go ahead.
Good morning, Chief Rohrbach here virtually. Everybody hear me?
We can hear you. Thank you, Chief.
Okay, thank you. So good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Cody Rohrbach, Fire Chief, Spokane County Fire District 3, and Board Chair of our regional dispatch system here in Spokane County. This morning, I really want to encourage you to reject House Bill 2258. It is not consistent with the intended use of the 911 excise tax funds as established by RCW, as well as the opinion of the state 911 office. Additionally, it'll have negative impacts on our 911 system as a whole. The only local government dispatch entity in Spokane County not represented by a regionalized communications center is already receiving the full benefit of those funds as defined by RCW, as well as the position paper that the state 911 office put out in December of 2021. I would encourage all of you to reach out to the state 911 office to ensure that you fully understand how this bill could negatively impact public safety and service delivery in our state. And so you are informed on the intended use of those funds. This is not an effective or efficient approach to emergency communications. It's not consistent with how the funds were intended to be used. Nearly all first responder agencies in Spokane County are part of our regionalized model. Cohesive, coordinated response in emergencies is imperative to prevent some of those redundancies and duplication that all of you are asking about. And furthermore, I think local issues should not become statewide issues. House Bill 1155 was passed in 2021 under similar circumstances with a intent to carve out 0.1% sales tax revenues specific to Spokane
Sorry,
County.
Chief, if you could please wrap up. Your time's up.
Okay. In closing comments, just say that did not receive its intended results. It's still not resolved. And I say, hey, I support any local government entity that wants to choose to participate or not participate in a regionalized response, but I don't feel those impacts should negatively impact the 20 plus other agencies and our community represented by our regionalized model. So thank you for the opportunity to comment, and I hope that you'll reject this bill.
Question by Representative Riccelli.
Thank you for your testimony. So question, because you did reference the previous bill, did any of the negotiations occur around the interlocal agreement that was proposed in the previous bill?
Yes, they did. There was ongoing discussions, and then really when there was an evaluation of impacts of services currently provided and the costs of those services, it was not a net gain for the city based on services already provided. And so at this point, there's been no ILA.
Follow up. Thank you. As far as response times, sir, is it transparent? Can one of the participating jurisdictions ask for response time and get an accurate assessment in this current state that we're at?
Yeah, and I think specifically to that question, individual response times by agency vary based on our staffing levels, but what we can get are good metrics for our dispatching times related from call intake to notification to the department, and then based on staffing levels for local jurisdictions, you would see some variability there. But certainly through our regionalized system, you can see all those dispatch times.
Thank you. Follow up?
Yes.
Thank you. Would you, just as we're talking about the efficiency, and I'd love to talk with you a little bit offline as well, but again, I'm just going to ask the same question since from where you sit is kind of organizing this. On the law enforcement side, I heard Representative Griffey's answer, but I just want to ask you the question as well. So is there information that from a law enforcement side, so if you have an issue in the city of Spokane, someone calls 911, is there information that then has to be duplicated in the intake at multiple stages currently?
Yes, there is some duplication as it relates to one trying to determine call location and type, and ensuring and in this case when there's a secondary PSAP that it's transferred to that PSAP. So inevitably you create some duplication, and talking with state 911 office on best practices, you also create another opportunity for failure, another point of failure as that call is transferred. And then additionally there's some albeit probably not a lot of seconds, but there's some seconds also added to that call, and also the individual that's calling in may experience some may have a negative service experience when you call 911 for an emergency, and there's a transfer that occurs.
Thank you.
Please go ahead, Mike Hoover.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Mike Hoover here on behalf of the Washington State Association of Counties, sadly in opposition to this bill, which I do understand is brought largely involving a dispute in one area of our state, but of course it would affect all areas of our state if this were to pass. There's a variety of models for how this is handled and how the money flows. It is usually done with interlocal agreements, and of course if we just redirect this money for this particular purpose, it will upset all of that with some catastrophic results to a lot of counties. King County alone, for example, would be hit with $7.5 million loss just from this. It is working. I have great sympathy for the problems described and great respect for the proponents of the bill, but I would suggest that maybe there are remedies short of changing the full RCW to address this. Thank you.
Yes, Representative Riccelli.
Thank you, Mr. Hoover, for your testimony. So would there be different considerations if applied to Spokane County only?
Well, I represent the county, so of course the counties are always right. But I would certainly say I would prefer we not have a bill on this issue per se, just because I'm afraid it's hard to draft. But it would definitely be better if it were narrowed. Correct.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
One more question, Rep. Gaynor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, Mike, this would, what I think we've seen across the state is we do have these interlocal agreements, correct?
Correct. Mostly.
Would you see this situation as one that could be remedied with an interlocal?
I'm not an expert per se, but from an outsider looking in, I think it could, yes.
Thank you.
Last person signed in to testify is Ken Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Ken Johnson. I'm a fire chief here in Spokane County, Fire District 10. So we're one of the fire districts that they referenced today. And I just want to, express my concerns for House Bill 2258. And, what this poses a threat to our agency is the fact that the recent improvements by the Spokane Regional Emergency Communications Center regarding those response times that you're talking about has helped our district with improved ratings. So our insurance rating just dropped a full point, which benefits our commercial businesses and our residential community members. And so seeing some of that stuff undone and the potential or the ability for that stuff to be undone would cost our citizens money through increased tax dollars, or I'm sorry, the insurance rates, which, we celebrated that improvement. That was a big deal. And it's tied to those response times that you guys were asking about. We no longer have that reduced or duplicated response times because they are taking in the call and then they are having to repeat the questions. We did away with that several years ago once everything combined. And so I urge you to vote no on 2258. Thank you.
Thanks for wrapping up. Question, Rep. Riccelli.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So my question is, so we're talking about fire, but fire, of course, the city has joined in there, right? And so we are still seeing that duplication in, which was said by the previous person testifying, by Mr. Hoover, or I'm sorry, not Mr. Hoover, by the previous fire chief that testified. So I guess my question is, we're seeing that I'm just trying to compare apples to apples, because what I'm hearing here is on the fire response times, but this is a law enforcement issue that we have in front of us, and we hear that that there are clear issues with duplication. So that's, I guess, my question.
And that's by choice. That's by choice. Spokane PD doesn't want to join, so it's going to be duplicated.
Okay. Well, I'm here on behalf of the citizens of Spokane, so I know we have a bit of a food fight. My big interest is making sure that we have response times on behalf of the law enforcement. But I hear you. I'd love to talk with you offline, and I appreciate your testimony today.
You bet. Thank you.
Okay, with that, we will close the hearing on HB 2258, and we're going to open the public hearing on 2103, reopen for testimony. So just to give you a view of what we're going to do, I think we're going to split the rest of the time between 2103 and 2211, and then I need to open the public hearing on 2231 before the end and hear a testifier so that I can move it to Wednesday. So I'm going to give you as much time as I can. So with that, Madam Vice Chair, could you call up someone to testify on the 2103?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We'll start with a panel of Lee Trung, Senayet Neguse, and Kyle Moore. And apologies if I mispronounced your name. Please go ahead, Lee Trung.
Hi, my name is Hong Lee. I live in the Sea-Tac, and all my window glass is at the mall, and hot parking is 12. I would like to ask you guys to report to the 2103. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your testimony. Next, Senayet Neguse.
Hi, Hi, can you hear me? Good morning, Madam Chair and committee members. Snight Naguse, City of Sea-Tac Council member, here to express support.
I'm sorry, we just seem to have lost your audio. I think you muted yourself.
Can you hear me?
We're getting pretty terrible feedback.
Great. How about now?
That's perfect. Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Please go
Okay,
ahead.
sorry about that. Good morning, Madam Chair and committee members. My name is Snight Naguse, City of Sea-Tac Council member. Sorry, I have Mr. Lee beside me. He is one of our residents. I'm here to express support for House Bill 2103. Sea-Tac Airport stands as the economic engine of our region, as you know, benefiting all. Unfortunately, our residents suffer adverse impacts because of this, including noise pollution and air quality concerns that contribute to negative health outcomes. The port has made efforts since 1985 with port packages to remedy the situation. However, a significant number of residents, like Mr. Lee, continue to suffer due to the failed installation of these port packages by bankrupt contractors selected by the port. In many cases, window seals have failed, leading to mold and foggy windows, ineffective sandproofing, and in some cases, damage to the structure of residents' homes. This is an equity issue. House Bill 2103 aims to rectify these issues. Airports like San Francisco have successful programs that are 100% funded by the airport. This program and this passage of the bill could lead to similar programs here in Sea-Tac, benefiting residents like Mr. Lee, so they can have the simple yet profound joy of looking out the window. Thank you, Representative Orwell, for sponsoring this bill. Passage of House Bill 2103 will be a lifeline for our residents. Please support it. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your testimony, Councilmember. Kyle Moore.
Good morning, Madam Chair and committee members. Kyle Moore, I'm Government Relations for the City of Sea-Tac. I'm here to testify in favor of House Bill 2103. Sea-Tac Airport comprises 42% of my city, and my residents are the most impacted by noise and pollution from aircraft operations. My residents are also some of the most impoverished in the Puget Sound area and don't necessarily have the means to replace these packages on their own. Over the past 40 years, 9,500 of these packages have been installed. However, current FAA policy restricts airports from using federal funds to upgrade or repair noise insulation other than those homes that received the packages before 1993. I am advocating at the federal level to have the FAA dedicate more funds to this program. However, the federal government moves at a glacier's pace compared to how the state works. The program at HB 2103 can be in addition to any federal funds that are eventually directed by the FAA. Please vote yes on this bill. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Next, we have John Flanagan and Eric Fitch. After we do this in-person testimony, we'll go to Tracy Buxton, J.C. Harris, and Ann Croker.
Here we go. Thank you, Chair Dewar, Ranking Member Gaynor, members of the committee. Good morning. For the record, my name is John Flanagan, Senior State Government Relations Manager for the Port of Seattle, testifying today in opposition to House Bill 2103. The Port of Seattle appreciates the focus that this bill brings to issues faced by communities near SEA International Airport. The Port's worked for years with our near airport communities to create opportunities for engagement and discussions around the issues related to the airport. That includes the creation of the South King County Community Impact Fund, which was already mentioned, the convening of the SEA Stakeholder Advisory Roundtable, and regular engagement in D.C. advocating alongside community members for changes to federal law. However, the bill before you poses a significant number of concerns to the Port. Rather than trying to run through that list in 60 seconds, I will plan to transmit our concerns to the chair and committee via email. I'll just close by saying we've met with the sponsor multiple times to express those concerns, but also to highlight areas of potential agreement and compromise. Last Friday, we shared an amended version of the bill that the Port would support, which included directing state resources toward inspections to identify failed noise packages, and then creating a program to pay for inspections and to put resources towards repairing and replacing failed packages as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Dewar, Ranking Member Gaynor, members of the committee. I'm Eric Fitch, Executive Director at the Washington Public Ports Association, here to express my organization's concerns with House Bill 2103. First, the legislation in our eyes fails to consider the robust investment that the Port of Seattle has been making for decades in near-port communities, including hundreds of millions spent to perform noise insulation in thousands of homes around the airport. In addition, I'd like to call out the Port's national leadership in environmental mitigation South King County Fund, now mentioned a third time, but also, as many of you know, the port is a leader in deployment of sustainable aviation fuels, has the most aggressive targets for sustainable aviation fuel use of any airport in the country. In our eyes, the bill constitutes a challenge to the port's independent management of an essential public facility. Ports manage transportation facilities to promote trade and economic development and to move our people. This bill brings the state into that business and into the port's budget writing business. Finally, as I mentioned before, Sea-Tac is funded entirely by federal grants and airport revenue, and this bill devotes a portion of the port's tax levy to an airport operational issue, which counters precedent. Happy to take questions, and we're glad to hear there are discussions about improving the bill. Thank you.
Any questions? I actually have a question. The South King County Impact Fund, can you tell us more about how it's funded and how much money's been put there, or could you email us more detail?
I can give you some more detail on the back end. Actually, Eric might know better about how it's funded. There's a match program. It's 2-to-1 match at this point. But I can say I think it's $10 million in that fund spent from 2019 to 2023 on a variety of programs. Noise mitigation is part of it, but it's about broader community support, grants to local organizations, things like that as well. And I can follow up with some more details.
Great, thank you. Rep. Gaynor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You just mentioned a match. So who is actually matching?
I'll just jump in to say, in my prior capacity as the Port of Seattle's in-house legislative person, we worked with the legislature to pass a 2-to-1 match bill, which allowed for contributions from the port to be matched by contributions from community organizations on environmental projects and other types of community projects. So the match is actually a reference to what the local groups are required to provide in order to receive port funding, and the legislature reduced what the local groups were required to provide. It was intended to sort of multiply what the port's investment in the South King County Fund could mean for on-the-ground community projects.
And if I could just say quick too, if I'm understanding part of your question there, Representative Gaynor, when we talk about federal funds going towards noise mitigation, there's a match element there as well. As has already been highlighted, this expanded mitigation and the expanded area of mitigation covered in this bill does not allow us to use other airport revenues or federal funds on this. Typically, when we do noise mitigation programming, it's an 80-20 split, 80% FAA and federal funding, 20% Port of Seattle port revenues associated with the airport to do that noise mitigation.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony.
Next, we have Tracy Buxton, J.C. Harris, and Ann Croker. One minute, right?
Good morning, Madam Chair, committee members. My name is Tracy Buxton, Mayor of the City of Des Moines, and we support this bill. First, I'd like to take a moment to consider our history here in the Northwest. Beginning about 200 years ago with the Lewis and Clark expedition, westward expansion across the country included the Oregon Trail, railroads, military securing of the Salish Sea, and the creation of port districts, all with one shared objective: the nurturing and protection of commerce and trade in this state and the nation. Today, we find ourselves at a crossroads. Last year, we attempted to secure our vibrant economic future by locating a second commercial airport, but we're stopped dead in our tracks. Why? Because the residents didn't recognize airports as a good neighbor, only as harmful. So if we are to honor over 200 years of deep sacrifice and investment and create a sustainable, globally connected economy here in our state and for the nation, we must protect the residents who receive the impacts of this vibrancy, starting at Sea-Tac. Thank you.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Ann Croker. I'm a resident of Des Moines. Thank you very much to my city's reps and to Representative Orwell, who's put this very needed bill in front of you. I live 10 miles south, and yet the airplane paths have moved to 3,000 feet and below every 2 minutes, all day, all night. There's supposed to be a 5-hour quiet window, and 2 cargo planes go over every day. We can move, other people cannot. And it's been quite difficult for the growth of the airport, not to step in for the mitigation, which really hasn't been seen. Everybody needs to pay for these benefits and not at the expense of all the communities. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. My name is J.C. Harris. I'm also a member of the Des Moines City Council. I'm a licensed engineer. But today I represent Sea-Tac Noise.info, a community group that has this list of complaints. There are over 1,000. I've personally visited over 250 homes. We're something of the subject matter experts on this, and I welcome an opportunity to go through specific cases offline with all of you. Before I get the hook, $0 of South King County fund go for any kind of mitigation for port packages. They are grants typically for things like tree planting, utility box wraps, all worthy things, but nothing to do with noise and pollution. This idea was originally proposed in the 70s after the Sea-Tac Communities Plan, which created the first round of sound insulation and environmental mitigation programs. The quote from the port at that time was, "As we do better, you'll do better." Somewhere along the line, that promise got lost, and HB 2103 is the cure. It is justice, okay? So you will hear about, legality.
Thank you. If you could please wrap up your comments.
But this is a program that is the justice for my community. Thank you. I hope you will contact me offline.
Thank you all very much for your testimony. Next, we have Kevin Schilling, Randy Boucher, and Steve Edmiston. And apologies if I mispronounce anyone's name. Good to see you. Go ahead.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the committee. Thank you for holding this hearing today on the important topic of mitigating harm to communities near the airport. My name is Kevin Schilling. I'm the mayor of Burien, a fourth-generation Washingtonian and third-generation airport community resident. I'd like to start by voicing my appreciation to Representative Tina Orwall for her partnership on airport issues and moving toward action to find more resources for local communities impacted by airport growth, noise, and particulate matter. As the chair of the Airport Committee in Burien, our city has worked to address concerns around enhanced airplane noise and particulate matter. We continue to see needs arise and continue to grow in Burien for mitigation. The city of Burien strongly favors this legislation to increase resources to local communities looking to address these negative externalities associated with living right next to the airport. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate you coming to Olympia to give the testimony. Randy Boucher? If not, I see Steve Edmiston ready on Zoom. Please go ahead.
Hello, my name is Steve Edmiston. I'm testifying in favor of House Bill 2103. I'm here as a citizen today. I live in the city of Des Moines. I live in the flight path. Like 30,000 other Des Moines residents, I'm impacted daily by the 400,000 annual overflights. I want to address a great question posed by Representative Jacobson at the beginning. No, I want to make clear, I do not believe a $12 million annual fund has already been established and is collected. It is worth looking deeper into this for sure. The actual facts, back in 2018, a one-time fund of $10 million was established. It's been rebranded to the South King County Impact Fund. At the time, it was referred to by the port as a drop in the bucket. Unfortunately, not a single additional drop has ever been put in the bucket. And going on 5 years, the port has not even spent the original drop in the bucket. And of course, now communities have to contribute to get a fraction of the drop in the bucket. It does not address the objectives of this current bill. I hope you consider the current bill. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Next, we have John Worthington, Jeanette McChesney, and Wendy Leonard. Go ahead, John Worthington.
Thank you, committee members. John Worthington, against the bill because it puts all the blame on the port and the airlines and saddles them. And a lot of these guys join the ICLEI and they don't really want to work in port. In 1980, they were informed about the 5-mile radius. They didn't do anything. They grew population by 30%. Department of Health came out with a study that said there aren't any excess cancer rates in 1999. You filled it up, like I said, by 30%. Right out of the climate change fund, you take that 5-mile radius and you get those people out of there like you should have done in the 80s. So I don't support the bill. It's a bad bill. And you got any gum? Thanks.
Thank you for your testimony. Next up is Wendy Leonard.
Wendy Leonard is not present.
Okay. I forgot the other, the next person. Who's after Wendy Leonard?
Jeanette McChesney.
Not.
Also not present. Okay, thank you. We will go next to Sandra Mock, Denise Utley or Utley, and Stuart Jenner.
Hi, my name is Sandra Mock. I live in Des Moines, and I have the 3rd runway landing path going right over my head. Planes are often 1,000 feet over my home. I'm a realtor in Des Moines, and I also own an Airbnb that I would like to open up for any one of you that would like to come and stay there to experience what we experience in Des Moines on the regular basis. I guarantee you that you won't get much sleep, simply because my port package has failed. In fact, every port package I have been into in the homes in Des Moines, they have all failed, all of them. And I can tell you that I have an inordinate amount of clients that have various different types of cancers, many of them so rare, they don't even know how this could possibly have happened. 6 years ago, my husband died in my arms from a brain bleed. 2 years after that, WHO came out with their study that told us many of my husband's problems and health issues were caused by the airplanes going overhead. The fine particulate study that UW did confirmed it. I can't help but wonder if this bill hadn't come sooner, whether he would still be alive. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. I'm so sorry for your loss. Denise Utley?
Utley, yes.
Please go ahead. Thank you.
Yes, my port package was installed in February of the year 2000. In 3, 4, and 5 years after the install, I started experiencing the problems of mold, fogged windows, leaking windows, wood warping the framework around the windows, and drywall damage, etc. It has continued since then. In my efforts during that time to get help, the port, after contacting them repeatedly, had told me it's the fault of the contractor. I have to work through the contractor. And the contractor, of course, says it's the port because it has to do with the windows, not the install. In September of 2005, I received a letter from the port finally saying, we're sorry, but this is between you and the contractor, and we don't have any offer to help you. And the assumption there is that all of the failures were caused by bad installations rather than the window manufacturing. When I started digging, I found out that our manufacturer was Alpine Windows. Again, just to backtrack, my install was February of 2000. Alpine Windows went bankrupt in July of 2000. This was known, their financial struggles were known, and the port never should have allowed them to provide windows through this contract to people where they couldn't warranty them. I have no warranty. None of us do. And that's why our windows haven't been taken care of. And that's why I hope that you will support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony.
Go ahead, Stuart Jenner.
Good morning. I'm Stuart Jenner. I reside in Normandy Park, about a mile west of Sea-Tac Airport. I've been involved for many years with airport issues. I was struck some 20 years ago by a fundamental unfairness of the port getting a long-term, essentially eternal mitigation exemption in exchange for short-term work that even then was in 2005, I was hearing stories of how many problems there were with it. And it just seemed fundamentally unfair. So I'm very much in favor of this bill because I really think that it has potential to help people. 2 words, asthma, windows. Indoor air quality really is very important to our family. My wife has asthma. My daughter has asthma. My wife's grandmother died from asthma, not locally, but it's a big issue. Windows, I helped a friend over the weekend whose window would not close. It was about 20 degrees out and there was cold air coming in and we just had to work really, really hard. Eventually I was able to close it, but windows fail. We need help. Thank you. Please vote for this bill.
Thank you for your testimony. Next, we have Sarah Moore, Barbara McMichael, Debbie Wagner.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you for letting me testify in favor of House Bill 2103. My name is Sarah Moore. I'm a 20-year resident, parent, and gardener in Boulevard Park in Burien, directly between 2 flight paths. I serve on Burien City Council, but today I'm speaking as an individual on behalf of myself, my family, and neighbors in similar situations who are not able to join the meeting. My windows are double paned with a port package. I'm calling you from my living room, which has functioning windows. In this room, the air is warm on a cold day, and although I hear the airplanes, you cannot. My bedroom and bathroom are another story. My bath has fog between 2 sets of glass, which tells me they no longer have insulating value. Not only do noise and pollutants infiltrate, but molds will begin to grow unchecked, as I have seen in other houses. The window frame also is compromised with cracks large enough for ants to enter. In my bedroom, a couple of sets of windows no longer hang squarely on their frames and can't be opened or closed. One is stuck halfway open, the other moves on its slides but is crooked and closes imperfectly. In addition to awakening by airplane noises, which easily get through, so do cold and hot weather and occasionally smoke and presumably ultrafine particles. Meanwhile, as my port package deteriorates, the airplane noise and pollution have accelerated. A temporary solution was offered for a permanent harm, and my family, and my neighbors, and I continue to carry the cost of the important transportation needs of our airport. If the mitigation no longer works and the impact continues, it is no longer mitigation. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony, Council Member. Next, we have Barbara McMichael, followed by Debbie Wagner.
Good morning. I'm Barbara McMichael, here to support House Bill 2103. 25 years ago, my husband and I found a house we could afford under the flight path into Sea-Tac, and we're told the port package would protect us from the worst of the noise. Shortly after we moved in, the seal in our bedroom windows failed, allowing moisture in. When we bought, there wasn't any talk of microparticulates that can cross the blood-brain barrier, and I had no idea that the soil in my organic vegetable garden was likely toxic from aircraft emissions. Today, my husband's hearing is compromised, and I've been having seizures due to an unidentified brain anomaly. Our property and our health are damaged goods, as is our community's tree canopy, which has been decimated by airport expansion. I hope this bill will help preserve remaining local forests and expand tree canopy in our airport adjacent towns. Last year's airport site study showed that nobody wants a new airport in their backyard. So if Washington residents want to keep flying, if international trade wants to keep using Sea-Tac as the state's aviation gateway, then you all have to ensure meaningful remediation for my community. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that testimony. Debbie Wagner.
Hello, I wanted to give some reasons why the port should pay for this retrofit and upgrade. Effective mitigation is required by the National Environmental Policy Act as a condition of building where impact may negatively affect human health. In 1980, Congress passed the ASNA Act requiring airports to draw maps showing where their noise levels would harm human health. The act required airports to remove those residential uses in the unhealthful noise levels. The very dense population around the airport and unhealthful noise would cost billions to remove. So instead, the port developed mediation. Mediation would keep communities intact and provide noise mitigation to make them compatible. Even though the port promised to remediate, they then required a valuable abrogation easement for that required mitigation, meaning homeowners paid the port by conveying their property and civil rights. Nobody ever verified the effectiveness of the noise mitigation. It had no oversight, inspection, or guarantee of success. The failures of the packages are a huge environmental injustice that have left tens of thousands of very poor homeowners in harm's way, a violation of their inalienable right to a healthful environment guaranteed by state law. And we know these predominantly low-income minority residents who cannot
Please wrap up.
fix their are more unhealthful than the rest of the county's residents. The mitigation is not a gift, but agreed to by mediation and required by federal law. The program is something the homeowners already paid for in the form of the easement. The fact that it has failed in many cases is directly the port's fault and problems because these homes should have never been left here in the first place. If continuing to live there is a threat to human health, it should be the polluter pays principle, as is usual for all industries. Thank you. I'm speaking in support of HB 2103.
Thank you for your testimony. Next, we have Heather Morton, Maria Battagliola, and Robert Morton. Just to help fill the Zoom room, after that, we're going to go to Kent Palisari and Megan Slade. Heather and Robert are not present. So we'll go to Maria Battagliola, followed by Kent Palisari and Megan Slade.
Thank you for your strong consideration of this bill. My name is Maria Battagliola, and I chair the Beacon Hill Council. Beacon Hill has 40,000 residents. We're underneath the flight path and are not eligible for any mitigation. We experience 70% of the landings that come to Sea-Tac Airport. This is an environmental justice, equity, health, and climate justice issue for us because our 40,000 plus residents include 70% people of color and 40% immigrants and refugees. The public health study already shows the 10-mile radius that's impacted by the Sea-Tac Airport. And in that, it talks about the respiratory or asthma, the cardiovascular, and the impact on premature births and low birth weight. My son has asthma, and his dad had esophageal cancer. The Duwamish study of 98108, which majority residents live in Beacon Hill, show that people live 8 years less on the average. So we're an overburdened community with no eligibility for air and noise mitigation. The funding is small. There's a funding gap that we're trying to solve to help the port be true to its values of environment and community, aside from the economic robustness that it's helping us all to have. But the important thing is that there's more than 250,000 people with significant people of color and immigrants and refugees with low social determinants that need help now. So please pass House Bill 2070 and help that port walk its equity, environment, and community values talk. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Next, we have Kent Palisari.
Yes, hi, I'm Kent Palisari. I was a resident of Sea-Tac for 14 years. I recently moved for my health because of the impact that the airport had on me. About 5 years ago, my daughter and I had a community garden over at the Sea-Tac Community Center. She loved it there, but as a result of some citizen science that I did, we found out that the plants there, the carrots, the tomatoes were just filled with toxins from the soil. She crushed her heart, but we had to basically not have that garden anymore. I think any organic garden around the airport should be illegal because it is toxic. We need to have air filtration systems in every home, in every school, every business area. The Port of Seattle has healthy air within their terminal, but it's 3 times worse outside the terminal. That's what the population has to breathe. This problem is 10% of the U.S. population is around the top 25 airports. We need to mitigate this on any level that we can possibly do so. I support this bill strongly as a first step towards doing so. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Next, we have Megan Slade and Randy Boucher. If you're Boucher, I'm sorry for that pronunciation. If you are here, you are the last person we have signed in to testify. Please go ahead, Megan Slade.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Megan Slade. I'm a Beacon Hill resident who lives under the Sea-Tac flight path. I'm also a member of the Beacon Hill Council EJ Task Force. I'm here to testify in support of HB2103. As a parent, I'm deeply concerned about the adverse health impacts of chronic exposure to air noise pollution in our community. My children's school is a Title I school with many vulnerable children and families. It's located not only under the Sea-Tac flight path, but also other pollutants that have a cumulative burden that is being carried in our children's bodies and brains. Addressing specifically the pollution from Sea-Tac is crucial to lower this burden. In my neighborhood, there are children who live with asthma, brain cancer, neurodevelopmental disorders, seizure disorders. I know many families who have had preterm births, which has been linked in studies specifically to the ultrafine particles. For years, we've been told that our health matters, but we don't see any meaningful changes to address the harm to our health. We look forward to the passing of HB2103 so that our children can be healthy, grow, and play. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. That concludes testimony on 2103. So we will close the hearing on 2103. Appreciate you all being here. In order to hear 2231 tomorrow, I need to open the hearing, hear a staff report, and hopefully there's someone here, one testifier who can testify so that we can do that, the rest of that hearing tomorrow. So staff, would you please brief us on 2231?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Once again, Elizabeth Allison, staff to the committee. The bill before you is House Bill 2231, incentivizing cities and counties to attract and retain commissioned law enforcement officers. For some brief background, retail sales taxes are imposed on retail sales, and if the retail sales tax is not collected when the user acquired the property or service, then a use tax applies to the value of the property or service. The Washington State Criminal Justice Training Commission establishes curricula and standards for training criminal justice personnel, operating training and educational programs, and reviewing standards for instructors. Employing law enforcement agencies must reimburse the Criminal Justice Training Commission for 25% of the cost of training personnel. Turning to the bill, a county or city is authorized to impose a sales and use tax at a rate of 0.1%. The tax is a credit against the state sales and use tax and is in addition to any other authorized taxes. At least 50% of the money received under this section, under the tax, must be used solely for attracting and retaining additional commissioned law enforcement officers, and the remaining percentage of money may be used for criminal justice purposes, which is defined in the bill. Counties and cities are authorized to impose the sales and use tax as follows. Counties and cities with a population of 50,000 or less may impose the sales and use tax beginning January 1, 2025. Counties and cities with a population between 50,000 and 175,000 may impose the sales and use tax beginning January 1, 2027. And all remaining counties and cities may impose the sales and use tax beginning January 1, 2029. The Criminal Justice Training Commission is fully responsible for the cost of training personnel. Employing counties, cities, and state law enforcement agencies are no longer required to reimburse the commission for 25% of the cost of training under the bill. That concludes my remarks, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Representative Gaynor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Elizabeth, do you know exactly why it was set up with these population breakdowns in the time frame?
I cannot speak to why the member or why the sponsor chose to stagger it that way, but she may be able to if she testifies on the bill.
All right, thank you.
Okay, this is a little clumsy because I told the bill sponsor we would hear it tomorrow, but in order to do that, we need to hear one testifier. So I'm going to call up the one person who traveled the farthest, and that is Scott Engel. And then we'll hear the three that are signed up tomorrow. I know they're Lacey and Olympia, so hopefully they can join us tomorrow.
Good morning, Chair Dewar and council members, we're not city council, state representatives. I'm Scott Engel. I'm the chief of police in Puyallup and here to speak in support of House Bill 2231. House Bill 2231 is a triple win for our state. First for public safety, second for taxpayers, and third for the legislature. Public safety is a core function of government. Crime and public safety staffing are at a crisis point now in our state. This bill provides for a substantive, meaningful, and long-term statewide commitment to start to turn that around. The legislature has required law enforcement to make a lot of changes in recent years. The prioritization of de-escalation, to highlight community policing methods and use enforcement alternatives where possible. These changes can best be summarized for our officers on the streets as team up and slow down. And these require staffing and supervision to be successful at that. More staffing and supervision than most agencies have right now. Exhausted officers running from call to call on mandated overtime is the opposite of what we all agree we need and certainly impactful for law enforcement families. 2231 is a win for taxpayers as it doesn't raise the sales tax at the cash register, a great demonstration to our citizens that we recognize are in challenging economic times. In Puyallup, my community has said no to additional taxes multiple times. And we have many areas where our families live paycheck to paycheck, so any increase at the register is meaningful to them. 2231 is a win for public safety as it will take us from last place, dead last, 51 of 51, for police officer staffing ratio to a much better place. And 2231 is a win for the legislature as it recognizes the need to avoid additional tax increases, but at the same time supports public safety funding. I urge you to support 2231 and thank you for your time today.
Thank you. I only called one person up. Did
you were signed as an
You were
I just
signed
came in case you wanted.
Oh, perfect.
Thank you, Madam.
Does anyone have any questions? Rep. Jacobson.
I just want to say hello to my police chief, Scott Engel, and Puyallup is a generous people and a wonderful city to live in. Yes?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Nicely done, Rep. Jacobson. Thank you so much for your testimony. With that, I'm going to suspend the hearing on 2231 till tomorrow so that we can go back and reopen HB 2211. Hopefully we have enough time to get through everybody. Vice Chair.
Thank you. We'll start with a panel of three people. Mayor Dana Ralph, Councilmember Bill Boyce, and Councilmember Sadwinder Kaur. Sorry if I mispronounced your name.
Council President Boyce will be joining us on Zoom. Good morning, Chair, committee members. My name is Dana Ralph, and I am the mayor for the City of Kent. I'm here in strong support of HB 2211. I want to say thank you to Rep. Stearns for bringing this forward. We've been trying to address rising crime in our community through accountable and transparent policing for some time. We've invested in alternative responses, community court, body cameras, and more, but we are at the end of what we can do with our existing resources. We are putting in the work with the resources we have, and yet we are falling short. Crime is getting worse. In 23, there were 19 homicides in Kent compared to 4 in 2019. There were 176 aggravated assaults in 23 and 74 in 19. This is not drug possession. These are not property crimes. They're serious crimes where people's lives are being lost. Our residents don't feel safe. People are coming to our city council and saying, we just need you to do something, but without state authorization, there's not much we can do. I want to highlight that this bill is about funding the entire system, not just hiring police officers, but also increasing our co-responder program and community court. We urge the legislature to pass this as a temporary authority to city councils in 2024. We need this funding now. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much, representatives, honorable representatives, for an opportunity to speak. My name is Satwinder Kaur. I serve as a Kent City Council member, and I'm here today as a voice for my community. As a business owner, Kent resident, and a council member, I have not only heard the outcries from our residents, as the mayor mentioned, about public safety, we're also watching it, seeing it ourselves. Kent is one of most culturally diverse communities, 130 languages about spoken in our school district. And we have the largest, I believe, immigrant and refugee populations. In advance of this hearing, you probably received a map from our city of Kent comparing where police calls are occurring and average incomes within our neighborhoods. The data is clear. Kent's most diverse populations. I'm sorry? Oh, okay. Our low-income populations are being impacted by highest levels of criminal activity. They're the communities most harmed, and we don't have the resources to invest in a safe community. We know that sales tax is regressive, but that is our only choice at this point. So we urge you to please give us the ability to respond and act now for our residents. As local electeds, it's our duty to address our community's needs, and I ask for your support on HB 2211 and to pass it out of the committee. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your testimony, Council President Boyce.
Thank you, Madam Chair and committee member. My name is Bill Boyce. I'm the Council President. I'm here to speak on behalf of House Bill 2211. Compared to all other cities, the city of Kent is under police. The national average is 2.31 police officers per 1,000. Washington State is 1.36 per 1,000, and the city is 1.20, slightly over less than half of the average. We know the policy of history of further systemic racism, but we are changing and becoming better, more transparent, more accountable, more focused on the community. Kent was the first community to adopt a body-worn camera, and in the process implement a dash camera. We have also instituted the state of only community emerging law enforcement project where newly hired police officers are required to serve on the community organization prior to becoming a police officer. I also want to point out the city of Kent, when you talk about our council, we're one of the most diverse council in the state. We have 3 African Americans that serve on the council. Focus that our community are treated equally, and also want to make sure that we have police officers that can respond in a timely manner when we have things come up. Our community expect responsible policing. They also expect someone to respond to them when we call 911. Doing both means we need more officer and we need more resource. I want to thank you for your time and have a great day.
Thank you. Ranking Member Gaynor has a question.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and this is probably for whomever with the City of Kent. I'm just curious, when you look back on history, historically, what has happened with your per capita staffing levels, and have you seen a rise in crime because of some of the changes that you've seen at the state level for just the differences, whether they be drug laws or whatever? I mean, where do you see your biggest issues?
So our staffing has gone down per capita. We annexed a pretty significant portion of the city at the same time that streamlined sales tax went into effect. So for a little bit of history, Kent was the largest loser of sales tax in the state of Washington. I would say probably close to $20 million in today's dollars. So at the same time we increased population, we were losing that funding. So we've not been able to keep up with hiring additional officers, and I do think that there's a nexus. We are very much working to have a transparent and fair police department, but that also takes time. So a lot of the reform, which Kent absolutely embraced, means that officers are spending more time on calls. So our call response time has definitely gone down. We have more supervisors to the number of officers. Again, fully support those reforms, but they just mean we need more resources.
Thank you.
Thank you. I had a question. Have you gone to the voters for a levy?
We
for
did. We went
public
in
safety?
2018, a utility tax. Property tax in Kent, one of our biggest problems is if we were to go for, say, a 3% property tax increase, only generates about $676,000. Nowhere near close what the sales tax would. And we've got an extremely low voter turnout in Kent. So by the time we went through another levy process, we'd be looking at potentially two plus years without the resource to generate anywhere near the amount of money that we need.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Next, we have Lori Lane, Daryl Jones, and Jeanette McChesney. I think they're all remote. Oh, please. Apologies. Come on up. Why don't you go ahead, please,
Okay,
as we wait for the Zoom folks.
Yes, good morning. Daryl Jones from Kent, and I'm here in opposition to the proposed voter suppression bill, a bill that basically takes away the ability of residents in Kent to vote on whether or not the city can increase its tax rate. And as noted, we're a diverse city. The majority of residents in Kent are BIPOC. That's 60% of those residents are BIPOC. And America is supposed to be a representative democracy where elected officials are supposed to represent the ideas and concerns of citizens in government. And basically what Mayor Ralph has done is try to circumvent that process by going around the citizens of Kent, the people of color who have spoken and said no, not once, but twice, to 2 tax increases. So we've made our voices heard, yet we've got this, well, speaking of systemic racism, we've got this Caucasian mayor going behind our backs to representatives, the majority of whom are Caucasian, and trying to silence the voice of people of color. Personally, I find that offensive. But the fact of the matter is, we have spoken, we have said no, leave it to the people. Because honestly, if the vote was put to me, I would vote for the sales tax. My opposition is the fact that they're trying to suppress my vote and take away my option to make that decision and those of other Black and people of color who reside in Kent. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Next, we have Lindsay Hewer, Eric Holmes, and Michael White.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. You will be hearing, my name is Lizzie Hewer. I'm with the Association of Washington Cities here today in strong support of House Bill 2211. You'll be hearing from a number of our cities directly, and so I won't repeat what they're going to say. I know we're short on time, so I will condense my remarks. But generally speaking, in terms of all of our 281 cities, all of them are challenged with the ever-increasing costs of public safety, the increasing demands on city general fund budgets, the increasing demands for first responders by growing behavioral health issues, and by residents rightfully demanding more from our law enforcement. So you may be asking, if the public safety sales tax is such a vital tool, why not just use existing law? I will note that current law limits cities to 0.1%. This bill would expand that to a maximum of the 0.3%. Currently, only 6% of cities have taken advantage of this tool. So clearly it's not working for the vast majority of our 281 cities. Secondly, I want to emphasize we don't take the request lightly to move to councilmanic action. This is something where the resources are needed urgently, and we should leave it to the individual cities to make the determination. I want to make one quick note that we are working on an amendment with Representative Riccelli to clarify some of the language and hopefully have that to you soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Michael White. I'm with King County. I'm testifying in favor of House Bill 2211. Local jurisdictions, including King County, are facing revenue shortfalls, and this bill would give local governments a tool to address this shortfall. King County recently adopted $12.6 million in budget cuts in a supplemental budget, which included eliminating 13 sheriff's office positions and reducing overtime coverage. We will need to make an additional $30 to $35 million in cuts starting in 2025, likely leading to greater cuts to law enforcement. King County particularly cannot seek additional revenue to offset these expenses. The 1% cap on local government property tax is not kept up with doing business, including a collective 20% raise for sheriff's deputies from 2022 to 2024. And King County is statutorily barred from asking voters to pay for these existing services using property taxes. As a result, we have few options to shore up these services, and this bill would provide an option to address our deficit. Thank you.
Thank you. And online, we have Eric Holmes.
Good morning, Chair Doer, members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to testify in favor of 2211 this morning. My name is Eric Holmes, and I serve as the city manager for the city of Vancouver. I also serve on the board of the Washington City Managers Association. We support this bill to give additional councilmanic authority to support critical public safety services. In 2022, Clark County residents and voters approved 0.1% public safety sales tax. We are using our per capita share of that to support law enforcement, but it's notable that the per capita model results in about a little more than half of the revenue generated to the city of Vancouver that our direct sales tax would generate under the authority in this bill. Despite those investments and others we've made in recent years, our level of staffing remains among the lowest in the state at approximately 1.2 officers per 1,000. We appreciate that the bill as written would authorize new funds to be used for the full ecosystem of public safety investments. We have in place many of those elements and are committed to expanding those models. We also appreciate the non-supplant provisions of the bill. Just want to note that recognize that the addition of police officers is not a solution to the complex issues facing community safety. But in Vancouver, we estimate that the full all-inclusive costs of investing in the ecosystem are in excess of about $400,000 annually per new officer added. And when we look at those costs and the magnitude of investment we need to make, they cumulatively stress our statutory authority for property tax. So adding an additional tool like this is a critical element to overall success. We're on the verge of engaging the community in a public discussion about gaps, expectations, and solutions, and look forward to this being part of it.
For your testimony. Next, we have Executive Dave Summers and Mayor Tracy Buxton.
So it looks like Dave isn't here. Is he going to go first?
Why don't you go ahead? I see he's getting queued up in the online waiting room. So you can go ahead and then we'll turn it over to him.
Okay. Yeah. I think it's still morning. Good morning, Madam Chair and committee members. Thank you. I'm here. My name is Tracy Buxton, Mayor of City of Des Moines, and we strongly support this bill. And I think my colleagues have been extremely articulate in all of the things that they said, but just to reiterate, the ratio of officers to citizens in our communities is untenable in the state of Washington. And this bill is not an automatic tax, it's permission. It's permission to be able to govern in your own city or respond to the citizens in your own city as you see, as they request. So I'll be short. My name is Tracy Buxton. I'm the I am the mayor of Des Moines, and we strongly support this bill. I know they're laughing. My name is Tracy Buxton. I'm the mayor of Des Moines. We strongly support this bill. My name is Inigo Montoya. No. I plan to be as relentless as he was. And so please remember, we are in support of this bill. It will be very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Please go ahead, Executive Summers.
Good morning, Chair Doer and members of the committee. For the record, I'm Snohomish County Executive Dave Summers. Thank you for letting me speak in support of HB 2211. There's really no question we have a significant public safety crisis facing our communities, and local governments, whether county, cities, or towns, are at the front lines of addressing the problems we're seeing. House Bill 2211 will give us additional tools to address the complex nature of the public safety crisis, and the councilmanic component of the bill is really critical for us. Public safety is now over 75% of Snohomish County's general fund budget. When I began on the council in 1998, it was about 55%. Costs for services are rising faster than the revenue, and we're left cannibalizing other services. So public safety really needs its own revenue stream. These decisions should be left up to elected officials who know our counties and communities best. We know our needs and can make these decisions. So we've been on the forefront of creative, innovative ways of addressing the crisis, but 2211 would really help us save lives and make our residents safer. So thank you. I urge you to pass it.
Thank you so much for your testimony.
Thank you. Next up, we have Brian Carson, Gwen Allen Karsten, and Randall Smith. Please go ahead, Brian Carson.
Good morning. My name is Brian Carson, and I'm the Fire Chief for the Puget Sound Regional Fire Authority. I'm pleased to be joining you this morning to speak in strong support of House Bill 2211. Puget Sound Fire serves 5 cities and 2 districts in South King County. The largest of these cities is Kent, and I want to speak to an innovative partnership we've developed with the Kent Police Department. Puget Sound Fire deploys 3 CARES units each day in our communities. The units are staffed with a nurse and a social worker, and we believe they fill a gap that exists in service, needs in the community that exist between law enforcement and the fire service that aren't addressed by those traditional agencies. The nurse and social worker are called in to address the chronic medical and social needs encountered by first responders. That means in Kent, a police officer can request CARES when they enter a homeless encampment. Firefighters might request CARES for an elderly patient struggling to live independently. And police and fire may both be on the scene for a suicidal subject where neither skill set really fits the emergency and request CARES to assist. Today, Kent is the only city where police have invested financially in our program, but the city of Renton will join us later this year. I'm proud of CARES and I'm proud of the partnership. 2211 creates a pathway for law enforcement's continued investment in this program and programs like it. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and committee members. I'm Gwen Allen Karsten, a resident of Kent, Washington since 2004. I am the executive director of the nonprofit organization KBAC, Kent Black Action Commission. I'm a newly established member of the Kent's Diversity and Equity Inclusion Belonging Board. I am a member of Kent's Police Race and Equity Board. I serve as chair of Kent's Human Services Commission in 2023 and now 2024. I'm a former small business owner. I am fully invested in the city of Kent as a whole, and I'm here to testify in support of the House Bill 2211. I consider myself a voice of and from the BIPOC residents of the city of Kent who want and need more funding for our police department far beyond hiring more officers, such as aftercare and other assistance, which contributes to a better way of life and give hopes to those who need it. Yes, for the city of Kent and the exponential growth that has occurred over the last 19 years that I have resided on East Hill in Kent, we need more tangible remedies which reach the underserved. We need right now legislation as opposed to waiting for voters to dictate the remedies and lack thereof, considering the low voter investment when we have different elections. I agree with the purposeful use of the funds to help co-responders and diversion treatment services with oversight and attention to true services and helps for those affected. Therefore, I ask that this legislation for HB 2211 moves forward with a resounding yes. Thank you for your time and your listening ear.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, and I want to say to everybody here, I disagree with the statement earlier. Our mayor doesn't see color. Our mayor is here for our city. Our chief of police, one of the greatest that I know, they're all here to help us be safer in Kent. I'm a small business person in Kent. My wife and I have raised our family for almost 40 years in Kent. We were a small town, now we're a big city. I think we're number 6 As our city grows, we need more officers. We need more help there. We are located on First Avenue in Kent, where the population of homeless is well higher than it was 20 years ago. We also have been, we've had a lot of damage, theft, break-ins, things of that nature. When we call our officers, we expect officers to show up. Right now, with the current staffing, there's not enough to show up in the time frame that we need. So we're asking right now that 2211 move forward, get done, and let the people we elected do their job. Don't hold them back. They want to make sure we're safe. I want to make sure we're safe as a small business and a husband. So that's what I'm asking. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Next, we have Council Members Andrea Michaud, Mayor Sean Kelly, and Deputy Mayor Navarra Carr, all from different cities. Please go ahead, Council Member Michaud. Andrea Michaud.
Hello, Chair and committee members. My name is Andrea Michaud. I'm a council member for the City of Kent. I don't know what's going on with my background. Sorry about that. The City of Kent is in a challenging position and needs this authority now to address urgent public safety concerns. Kent is not a sales tax rich community, as the mayor stated. In 2008, the state changed the origin-based system for local retail sales tax to a destination-based system, gutting the tax revenue the city once received from its large warehouse district. I live across the street from one of the local parks here in Kent, and I'm acutely aware of how the rise in crime has greatly impacted our community spaces. This past summer, someone set the park on fire 3 separate times. There have also been in other parks illegal activity, they've been vandalized, and the expensive equipment has been stolen. These actions make the city stretch our already limited financial resources and make our community members pay for our parks and outdoor spaces feel as though they are unsafe and unable to utilize these essential resources. I acknowledge this is a challenging proposal to move, especially during a short session, but ask that at a minimum, a version that addresses Kent's emergent needs passes out of committee. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you for your testimony. Next, Mayor Kelly.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's always an honor to testify before you. City of Maple Valley urges you to pass 2211 out of committee to the full. Criminal justice is one of our main and most first responsibility in local government. National and regional crime has gone up. Public safety is one of the largest expenditures for local governments. The cost of providing public safety has increased significantly in recent years. The City of Maple Valley contracts the King County Sheriff's Office for police services. We think the world of our partnership with the King County Sheriff's Office. In November 2023, the citizens of Maple Valley voted to approve and it passed by 66%, a property sales levy lift to fund law enforcement at a current level. So we can't add any more officers. We just got to keep it at the current levels. So just like to make sure that the City of Valley would like to move this forward so we can in the future add more law enforcement officers or other resources if we need to. Thank you, Madam Chair, for your time.
Thank you for your testimony. Next, Deputy Mayor Carr.
Good afternoon. My name is Navarra Carr, and I'm the Deputy Mayor for the City of Port Angeles. I encourage you to support House Bill 2211. Port Angeles is a smaller city, and we need greater flexibility to adequately fund our first responder programs. We've currently exhausted our available funding options and now are looking at, what other services we would have to cut, like services for our roads, parks, things like that. You've heard a lot today about the challenges that our police face. So today I'd like to share about the challenges of our fire department, which at times exceeds 20 calls in a 24-hour period and has a yearly firefighter per call ratio of 243 versus comparable cities that average 141 calls per firefighter. These high call ratios have led to challenges to recruit and retain firefighters and paramedics. And we all want safe and healthy communities, and robust first responder programs are a key way to ensure that our city has the tools to keep our residents safe from harm. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Next, we have Juliana Rowe. Following Juliana will be Steve Strahan, Scott Engel.
Good afternoon, Chair Dewar, members of the committee. My name is Juliana Rowe, and I'm here on behalf of the Washington State Association of Counties. We are signed in as other. I just wanted to point out one piece. There's a provision in the bill that allows for counties to have sort of a grace period before cities are allowed to take this additional sales tax. And so we wanted to make sure that the provision that provides for that buffer period, the emergency clause stays intact. And if it doesn't, then we'd ask that we include a provision that would allow them 3 to 6 months to use this councilmanic ability before the cities do. Thank you.
Madam Chair, thank you. My name is Steve Strana. I am the Executive Director for the Washington Association of Sheriffs and Police Chiefs, testifying today in strong support of both this bill as well as Bill 2231, which I know you're considering separately. We strongly support both bills, and they're both very, very important. As you know, Washington is 51st in the nation in staffing for law enforcement, has been for 13 consecutive years. The Crime in Washington report notes that a net loss of 600 more officers has occurred over the past 2 calendar years. We're falling further behind. Polls show that people are highly concerned about public safety, and this bill and House Bill 2231 would set the foundation to build substantive change for staffing long term. Funding needs are a statewide issue. Cities and counties, big and small, urban and rural, are all affected. Finally, I would just say in terms of de-escalation, safety, reducing crime, all of these are important reasons for us to strongly support, and I urge that you adopt both 2211 and 2231. We support both. Thank you, and I'll turn it over to Chief Engel.
Chair Dewar, members of the committee, Chief Scott Engel, still Puyallup Police Department. Supporting 2211, law enforcement is very clear. We are unified and need some type of solution for law enforcement public safety funding. That is the crisis facing our community. 2211 is a vehicle that would allow local jurisdictions to address their needs and look at public safety from a holistic perspective and allow their local elected officials who are responsible to the electing public to make those decisions on how to invest those resources. Strongly support 2211 and 2231.
Thank you.
I think the last folks we have to signed in are Julie Red and Charlie Brown. I see Julie Red has entered the Zoom room. If you'd like to go ahead, you can go. Julie, if you can hear, you can unmute yourself and go ahead and testify. You go ahead while we wait.
Sorry, Pam got it. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Go ahead. Thank you.
Hi, thank you for letting me testify. I'm a firm supporter of House Bill 2211. I'm a senior citizen. I don't believe the senior demographic has been addressed, but I have about 20 examples. I'm going to give you, crime is everywhere. It affects everyone. The lawlessness in Kent is unbelievable. We need support now. I was at Kent Cornucopia Days, parked my car in the park. There was a drug deal going down in the park. Go to Airways Brewery. I had 3 police officers do a takedown on a gentleman right there, right in front of me at a big festival. It's not even safe. There's nothing. I walked out of my home and there is helicopters above and a spotlight on my head. Armed, dangerous perpetrator. My neighborhood was blocked. I walked out of my home another time. There's a stolen car in the middle of the road with someone running out, a Kia. It is everywhere. I called on a drug user in the parking lot going through fentanyl. 20 minutes, no police response. So the average response time for police in Kent is 50 minutes. It could be your home, your children. Anyone could be affected by what's going on with the situation. the lawlessness. So Joanne.
Thank you for sharing your testimony, Julie. If you could wrap up, please.
Okay, I'm in strong support of this. I think if nothing's done, there's no way to get the funding fast other than this, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Please.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I am Charlie Brown. I'm here today on behalf of Fred Meyer Stores. I thought it was important that we step up and support our communities. We have talked with the mayors and the police chiefs of many of the cities in the state of Washington over the course of the summer and fall. We are experiencing a lot of criminal activity at our stores, and we're asking for help for our customers and, more importantly, for our employees. And so when Mayor Dana Ralph asked us to turn around and support her after we asked her to support us, I said, absolutely, we will do that. So I'm here on behalf of Fred Meyer Store supporting 2211. I'm asking all of you to take the public safety issue seriously and help our cities help us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone, for your forbearance. We actually made it through all of our testifiers. I appreciate your patience today. We are adjourned.